After more than 30 years in the middle of it, we could tell you stories. The best you can hope for in the news business at this point is the freedom to tell the fullest truth that you can. But there are always limits. And you know that if you bump up against those limits often enough, you will be fired for it. That's not a guess, it's guaranteed. Every person who works in English language media understands that. The rule of what you can't say defines everything. It's filthy, really, and it's utterly corrupting. You can't have a free society if people aren't allowed to say what they think is true. Speech is the fundamental prerequisite for democracy. That's why it's enshrined in the first of our constitutional amendments. Amazingly, as of tonight, there aren't many platforms left that allow free speech. The last big one remaining in the world, the only one, is Twitter, where we are now. Twitter has long served as the place where our national conversation incubates and develops. Twitter is not a partisan site. Everybody's allowed here, and we think that's a good thing. And yet, for the most part, the news that you see analyzed on Twitter comes from media organizations that are themselves thinly disguised propaganda outlets.
There you have it. Propaganda outlets. That's what they are. They're propaganda outlets. And Carlson, like I said, has been locked in with Fox News for more than a couple of weeks, and they've been trying to do some negotiations since the network abruptly took him off air, agreeing to pay him, I think. At least this is according to Axios. They say that they want to pay him, but they want him off of air. Now we're seeing things come out about how it was a part of the Dominion lawsuit, where the settlement, where Dominion had wanted Tucker Carlson off, and Fox News bent the knee, and they did it. So this little video has nuggets that shed light on Carlson's experience at Fox News. It also shows that the Axios report was correct, and there's something there where Carlson and Musk might be in the talks here of a new media platform on Twitter. So obviously, Tucker will want his show and other assets he's developing to be available on sites other than Twitter, because he's got a large audience, folks, and some of that audience is not going to be moving to Twitter. So I'd imagine it's not going to be just on Twitter, but it's a great start and positive development for those who want less propaganda news. And this is very, very, very bad for Fox News. Just prior to the time Tucker Carlson's video was posted to Twitter, get this, his attorneys sent a letter to Fox accusing them of breaching a contract. So this is really interesting. There's a couple of Fox officials here, Irina Briganti, I think I'm saying that right, and Viet Din. These are the Fox officials that this letter was sent to by Carlson's attorneys, Brian Friedman and Harmeet Dillon. And this letter was obtained by Axios. And it specifically claims that Fox employees, including the couple of Fox officials I just named for you, and Rupert Murdoch himself, broke promises here to Carlson, quote, intentionally with reckless disregard for the truth. Wow. So this could be a defamation suit, which is so needed, because they are defaming him. And even in the letter, this is interesting, the attorneys here for Tucker Carlson, they're saying that specifically Irina Briganti is behind the leaks to Media Matters, to these leaks that are really not defaming him at all. If anything, they're making me like him more, but it's still really interesting that we've got somebody within Fox and they think it's her, Irina Briganti or whatever. So an outside working attorney for Dominion told Axios that Dominion did not insist on them, Fox News, firing Tucker Carlson as part of the settlement. So they say that that's false. Fox News is saying that's false, but the Tucker Carlson attorneys believe that to be true. They also believe that Fox's Briganti is behind all of the leaks to the media intended to harm Tucker Carlson's reputation, writing, "Make no mistake, we intend to subpoena Miss Briganti's cell phone, records and related documents, which evidence communications with her and all media, including but not limited to the New York Times. So things were leaked to the New York Times, the text message, the videos to Media Matters. So they're going to try to find out if she's behind that leak and get her on defamation. So there's a lot of things happening with this whole Tucker Carlson leaving Fox News, being fired from Fox News. And he said it himself. He was fired. He was fired from the show. They were going to continue to pay him, but they don't want him to do his show. I'm telling you, they are silencing. It is ramping up. They don't like Donald Trump. They're trying to silence him. They're trying to get him on defamation for this E. Jean Carroll. They're trying to get him with Stormy Daniels. They're trying to get Tucker Carlson. They're getting Dan Bongino off. I'm telling you, this is an attack on the conservative populist before the 2024 election. These are not curious coincidences, okay, folks? This is a blatant attack on conservative populists and this conservative movement that you're a part of. Now, do want to shift gears here. I've got a clip I want to play for you, and it was from last year. Let's take a listen. This is about Cook County, and we've got at least the third high-profile resignation from a career prosecutor in Cook County. This is the third one. Here we go.
One of the familiar faces of the Cook County State's Attorney's Office has resigned after 25 years. Jim Murphy wrote in a message sent to staff in the office that he wishes he could stay, but says he can no longer work for the administration, saying, quote, "I have zero confidence in their leadership." He's referring to State's Attorney Kim Foxx. Murphy writes, it started when the Safety Act, which passed in 2021, eliminating cash bail that'll take effect in January of next year. He states he supports eliminating cash bail, but believed the legislation was a PR stunt. Murphy also wrote he believes the administration is more concerned with political narratives and agendas than victims and prosecuting violent crime.
There you have it. That was from last year, a report about James Murphy resigning. Now, I've got another high-profile resignation of a career prosecutor in Cook County. Now, this Cook County prosecutor is quitting after 20 years, and he says this state and this county have set themselves on a course to disaster. These are strong words from somebody who's been a prosecutor for more than 20 years in Cook County. So I've got a letter he sent to 85 colleagues saying goodbye. His name is Jason Pui, and he was a longtime felony trial attorney for the office, and he gave his 2-week notice on April 21st of this year, and he's moving on to the next chapter of his life. So I've got the goodbye email. I'm going to read that here for you because it is scathing, and it is unreal. If you have not read this, I recommend you go read it. I'll tell you where you can find it, and I'll just tell you about it on the other side here on the Morning Buzz, so just stick around. It is 6:18 a.m. here on a Wednesday morning. I'll be back. Hey, good morning. Thanks so much for joining me. We've got so much to cover today. Let's get to your comments. They should reinstate him. He's the American hero we need. Tucker Carlson back on his own channel. The truth will come out with Tucker. Bring him back as soon as possible. Um, IMHO, the left, wants to shut Tucker up, I believe. They're using the corrupt FBI to strong arm the Murdoch sons. Yes, this is all in connection. So that's kind of interesting. There's a couple of things that I think that Tucker Carlson was working on, and he says that they were completely, what was it in the letter here from the attorneys, that they were completely trying to disregard the truth. There's a couple of things that Tucker Carlson had, probably information about Epstein's Island, being that just recently leaked out the calendar of who all went to Epstein Island. But then also, we now know in December that there's been some documents leaking out about JFK's assassination. And Tucker Carlson has gotten on before and has talked about how he has a source on this assassination of JFK. And then we have Robert F. Kennedy Jr. running for the Democrat side of the ticket here in the primary for the Democrat presidency and in 2024. And he's come out and has made some very strong statements about how he truly believes his uncle was assassinated by the CIA, and the CIA had a hand in assassinating him because he was no longer for the war, for the Cold War, and he was against the war, and he had some feelings change about the war. And he was starting to want to have peace, and they couldn't have that, of course, the CIA. Doesn't that sound familiar? But yes, the Epstein Island, and then I think even the JFK assassination might be something that Tucker Carlson has. When you get into this business, people start to go to you with stories, and they start to get comfortable with you and want to tell you the truth. So he might actually have some whistleblowers. He might have some sources on those stories, and he wants to run with them. And maybe Fox News said you can't. And then he was like, well, why the heck not? And then probably they pulled him off of air. I mean, that could be a possibility. So yeah, Sherry, I think you're on the right. You're on to something there. Then we've got $2.39 a gallon in Iowa. More and more resigning people fleeing the state at massive numbers. But it's not Pritzker, right? Yeah. Jacqueline, you're so right. It when you have people who have careers in the Cook County state's attorney's office for 20 years, think about that. If you are in a career, you're there for 20 years, and you resign and you go to a different state, that's a big deal. He even has a small child, and I'm going to get to this story here. His name is Jason, and he's in the Cook County. Sorry, tired. Where he's in the Cook County State's Attorney's office, and he's got a small child, and he's moving his entire family out of the state of Illinois, and he works in the state's attorney's office, and this is the third one, so it's a pattern, and we start to see Kim Foxx not running for re-election because people will not re-elect her. She is terrible. Awful. So most likely the Democrats came to her and said, look, Kim, you can't run. People hate you. So we're going to have to get a different George Soros-backed DA here. Good morning. Love you too, Colson. Then we have, you want him reinstated because you want more of that Russian propaganda. Why? Because he's anti-war and anti-World War III, and he doesn't want to get into a war with he doesn't want us to get into a war with a world power such as Russia. Like that's why he's Russian propaganda, because he's against World War III. Okay. Because they do, man. Why do you always assume George Soros backs Democrats? Come on, like that's just easy fact checking. Kim Foxx is a Democrat, and she's backed by George Soros. Her campaign finance is George Soros. He largely backs her via I would look up illinoissunshine.org. You can type in any politician and find out who funds their campaigns. And she, all of the time, has money from George Soros to run her campaigns. Alvin Bragg, same thing. He's a Democrat. Check out his campaign finance. Good morning. Thanks so much for joining me here on the Morning Buzz. You can be a part of the show by texting in to 309-451-9299 or see me live in the studio. I am on Facebook and on YouTube live, and you can see all of my show prep. You can see the articles, the videos, the audio. You can see everything you're hearing right here in studio on Facebook Live and on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. Now, I took the break and I wanted to talk about this attorney who's he's a prosecutor in Cook County and he's quitting. And this is the third high profile resignation career prosecutor out of Cook County to be resigning. This is big news because this shows that there's a pattern. People don't leave their careers of 20 years and their families, their homes behind, if not for good reason. Especially people who have a lot to lose when they build up a 20-year career like this. So this Cook County prosecutor who quits after 20 years says that this state and the county, Cook County, have set themselves up on a course to disaster. So those are very strong words, and this is from the CWB Chicago. And if you're not following them, I suggest you follow them to know what's going on in major cities and the crime that's happening in cities. I foresee Bloomington Normal becoming one of these cities. I do. I just do. I think Bloomington Normal is going to become a small Chicago, and it's just going to progressively get more and more crime riddled. I think that we have great law enforcement. I think that we have great prosecutor, Erica Reynolds. She does a great job. However, that doesn't change the fact that we are going to see more and more people come to Bloomington Normal, meaning that crime is going to spike, and it's going to be up to the McLean County state's attorney to hold the line. And I think she will. I think she'll hold the line. It's going to be up to our sheriffs, up to our police officers to be tough on crime. And I sure hope that they stay tough on crime. Most recently with this murder suspect on the loose, he's still on the loose. He's still on the run. They're going ahead with the jury, the trial jury. That's set to happen very, very soon. They were picking new jury members because they might have seen the article about where he had fled, so that will influence the jury. So they're changing it up a bit, that jury that is going to determine whether this guy is guilty for allegedly shooting somebody outside of the Daddy-O's bar in downtown Bloomington. Anyway, when people say crime doesn't happen here, crime happens here in Bloomington Normal, okay? And you have to be tough on crime. Otherwise, we're going to start to see good attorneys like Erica Reynolds leave McLean County. So here we go. Jason Puy, he is a longtime felony trial attorney for the office, and he entered his 2-week notice on April 21st. But before he moved on to this next chapter of his life, Jason sent out a goodbye email to 85 of his colleagues Friday afternoon. So, in his farewell, he extended a thank you, appreciation to his colleagues, but then he explained why he decided to leave the office and the state. So he's not only leaving his job there at the state's attorney's office, but he is also leaving the state of Illinois. After 20 years, and here's the email. After 20 years, I always kind of figured an email like this would start with, "It's with a heavy heart that I leave. But the truth is, I can't get out of here fast enough." Stop me when this starts to sound like the email that you dream about sending your colleagues one day. But here it is. Let me start with the positive. There's not a single day that goes by that I have not felt truly honored to work with such an incredible group of people who spend every waking hour on behalf of victims. This opportunity has been a gift for which I have no words to explain the extent of my gratitude. Our partners, our victim witness advocates, our investigators, our support staff, our police officers, detectives, time after time, I see you putting everything you have into helping these people we encounter on the worst days of their lives. So often I see our personal lives, and indeed at times our own well-being, set aside just to do a little bit more on that last case for that last victim. It's been nothing short of inspiring, not as a lawyer, but as a person. And yet I'm leaving. Why could that be? The simple fact is that the state and the county have set themselves on a course to disaster. And the worst part is that the agency for whom I work has literally backed every policy change that had the predictable and predicted outcome of more and more crime and more people getting hurt. He's talking about Kim Foxx here. Bond reform designated to make sure no one stays in jail while their cases are pending, with no safety net to handle more criminals on the streets, shorter parole periods, lower sentences for repeat offenders, the malicious and unnecessary prosecution of law enforcement officers. Let me say that part again. The malicious and unnecessary prosecution of law enforcement officers, the overuse of diversion programs, intentionally not pursuing prosecutions for crimes lawfully on the books after being passed by our legislature and signed by the governor, and all of these so-called reforms have had a direct negative impact with consequences that will last for a generation. So he's talking about the SAFE-T Act. He's talking about the weak on crime policies, the lower sentences, the shorter paroles, giving bail to murder suspects. I don't know who was behind that, but you don't give bail to murder suspects. I'm sorry. If I was a judge, heck no. Anyway, I'm a little heated this morning because of what is going on, not only in Cook County, but McLean County. Who did that? Anyway, so here's the letter goes on. Many years ago, my family found a nice quiet corner of the suburbs. Now my son, who's literally 5 years old, hears gunfire while playing at our neighborhood park. A drug dealer is open air selling behind my house, the second one in 2 years. If it were to be just me to consider, I'd stick it out. If it were just me, I would just stick it out here. But I've been through stupid state attorney policies before. But this office's complete failure is a failure to even think for a moment before rushing into one popular political agenda after another has put my family directly in harm's way. So he's talking about, he would stick it out, and he's done it before where he doesn't like policies that the state's attorney enacts. But this is really bad because they rush into the popular political agenda before thinking, even putting a moment of thought into it. So he goes on, he says the current people in charge of the state, including the state's attorney's office, suffer from a fundamental misunderstanding. We live in a society with adversarial courts and criminal justice processes. Defense attorneys, legal aid clinics, public defenders, defendant advocate groups fight like hell to try to protect the rights of criminal defendants. And they should. Their work is as noble as ours, but we have an obligation to fight like hell on behalf of the people. That's where we're lost, folks, because all of a sudden we've got woke state's attorneys backed by George Soros who are trying to make it their job to be the defense attorney, to be the public defender, to be the legal aid clinic, to be the defendant advocate group. No, we aren't. You are not. You are for the people. There are people who are defense attorneys. Let them do their job. So he goes on. It should go without saying that this must be done ethically and even-handedly. When both sides vigorously defend their positions, a balance is reached between protecting rights while preserving some sort of order and safety. Yeah, so the defense attorneys, they're there to protect your rights as if you were accused of a crime. The prosecutors are there to make sure we have law and order, some sort of order and safety. Once we start doing too much of the defense's job, once we pull our punches, once we decide that it's worth risking citizens' lives to have a little social experiment, that balance is lost. So once you start to do the defense's job as a prosecutor, that's where, I mean, this little social experiment, the balance is gone. The unavoidable consequences are what we are witnessing in real time: an increase in crime of all kinds, businesses and families pulling up stakes, and bodies piling up the whole time, with the state's attorney who insists that there's nothing to see here, and there must, and if there is, it must be someone else's fault. So there's nothing to see here, but if there is something wrong, then it's somebody else's fault. Okay. And then they wonder why they cannot retain experienced prosecutors or even hire new ones. It's because any true prosecutor recognizes the importance of this balance. So that's interesting, because we have Erica Reynolds out there saying, maybe people aren't going to law school, we don't have enough attorneys. No, this is the reason why you can't get attorneys. The reason why you can't get attorneys is because good, experienced attorneys would not even think about getting into this hellhole of a state or trying to prosecute crime in this state, because they're going to be expected to do the job of the defense and their job and somehow balance the two. I love this part of the letter because it gets personal here. And I want to get through this letter because it's important. And I think it is so scathing, and you need to read it. It's on CWB, longtime prosecutor, the third one, at least this year, sent in his resignation. He says, "I'm not going to raise my son here. I'm fortunate enough to have the means to escape, so my entire family is leaving the state of Illinois. I grew up here. My family and friends are here, and yet my own employer has turned into a place from which I am no longer to be proud of and in which my son is not safe." So they've turned this place, he's talking about the state of Illinois, into a place where my son isn't safe. He's talking about his 5-year-old boy. "To everyone in the trenches of the state's attorney's office and in law enforcement, my one regret is that I cannot be at your side anymore as you continue to fight the good fight. I do not envy the task you have before you, but you have my utmost respect for carrying on. I hope one day you are successful at returning some kind of common sense and security to our communities." You have to read this letter. It is so scathing. This guy was working in the state's attorney's office as an experienced felony trial attorney, and he's done. He sent his resignation. This is the third high-profile resignation we've seen within the last year, 12 months. Natasha Toller, the office's well-respected chief of criminal prosecutions, announced her sudden departure in an email last February. Then we also had James Murphy. I played that audio clip for you. He followed her out the door in July of last year. So in an email, he sent out a similar email to that of Jason's. Kim Foxx herself, I'm sure the Democrats know that she can't win in 2024, so she's not seeking re-election, but I promise you they are going to find some sort of George Soros-backed DA to fill her shoes. Look, the bodies of teens, they are stacking up. They're stacking up, and these policies might sound great. Yeah, it might sound great. Governor JB making it to where teenagers can't have life sentences. Yeah, if you're 18, 19 years old and you gut somebody like a fish, he thinks that you shouldn't have a life sentence. These policies might sound great, and it might be all roses and butterflies, right? But look at what these policies are doing to actual people. You, the people of Illinois. Your kids were locked down at Normal West. You were locked down at Heartland Community College, college students, the people who are trying to better themselves and be the best and the brightest. They were locked down. This could have turned into a very ugly situation. This murder suspect out on the loose. And he was given bail. And I don't think that the bail system is perfect, but to all those end cash bail people out there who say, well, we shouldn't have cash bail at all. Well, expect more murder suspects to be on the run. Um, but I hope and I pray, that you as a parent, you're never put into the situation that a lot of these Chicagoans are, where they have to put bodies into the ground, of small little caskets into the ground, because there was a drive-by or a carjacking that went bad. Governor, JB, I sure hope you wake up. In fact, I'm praying for a revival of your soul, man. I hope you see the damage you've done, and I hope you begin to repair it. 309-451-9299. You can always text in. Now, you guys remember back in 2012 when Barack Obama said, if I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon Martin. Well, AOC, she's taken a page out of the same book, and she wants everybody to pretend that this Michael Jackson impersonator, the homeless nut, who has 40 arrests and had an outstanding warrant for felony assault, Jordan Neely, she wants you to pretend that that's your son. Okay, well, no, AC, because AOC, my kid, I'm sorry, he wouldn't be homeless, for one. For two, if he was mentally ill, I'm gonna get him the help he needs. For three, if he was committing felony assaults, I would hope that he'd be locked up after, 40 different times of encountering or of being aggressive, violent, and having all of these different charges. I'll be back. You can see me live in the studio on Facebook. This is Cities 92.9. Yeah, the Safety Act is an absolute disaster with predictable results. Yes. So, that's basically what this attorney said. He retired after 20 years out of Cook County, and this is the third high-profile resignation. And he cited the policies. He says, "Look, this is getting bad, and I don't think my 5-year-old is safe in the quiet little corner of the suburbs that we found." Anymore, because there's drive-bys, there's drug deals in my backyard, and he said it's just not safe anymore. And he's picked up his entire family. Think about that. After 20 years of being somewhere, he's picked up his entire family, and he is moving them out of the state, and he's leaving the state's attorney's office. And that's one thing too that you have to realize is once these people leave, they're not coming back. So the good people are going to leave, and the bad people are going to stay, and it's just going to get worse and worse. Um, Why wasn't Neely's family more concerned about him being homeless rather than be loud and complain about his death? Yeah. Yep. Being homeless and having all of these different arrests, right? So there were a bunch of different arrests that he had. He was out there. They had a warrant out. He had a standing warrant for his arrest, a felony assault, which in the state of New York is punishable by 15 years, up to 15 years in prison. So this isn't I punched my neighbor because I was mad at him. This was, I seriously injured you, and I could serve 15 years for seriously injuring you and intending to seriously injure you. So if you're out there hurting people, and if my family member was doing that, I would do everything and this is the thing, and I talk about it all of the time. Mental institutions mental institutions where you put people uh, and keep them there if they are mentally ill. People think that that's not right. People think that that's mean. That's very progressive, and we shouldn't be filling our prisons with mental health issue, mentally ill people. We shouldn't be filling our prisons with mentally ill people. We should be um, putting them in mental institutions, something separate than prison. I think that they need to get the help that they need. But for some odd reason in this country, we have gone so politically correct that we don't have mental institutions anymore. And we don't put people in mental institutions anymore. And we just give them a bunch of pharmaceuticals, and we give them antidepressants, which actually tend to make it worse a lot of the time for these individuals because they're not being properly treated. And you ask any psychologists will tell you this. It's kind of a guessing game when it comes to those antidepressants. They have to try to figure out what is best for you, and while you're figuring that out, you're able and you're free to walk amongst the legally or the law-abiding citizens. You're free to walk amongst us. I think it's a problem. It's a big problem. He's going to be their new Floyd martyr. Yeah, I didn't think it was going to pick up as much as it did. But it has. They just arrested 11 people in this most recent case here in New York. 11 people were arrested, and a Molotov cocktail was confiscated on Monday night in Manhattan after protesters clashed with the police during a demonstration over the subway sleep hold death of Jordan Neely. We'll be back here in just a little bit. Be sure to like and share the video, folks. Like it right now. Hit the like button and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. So, yes, we are going to be back. We're going to be talking about AOC and how she comes out there and she says, oh, just take a page out of, takes a page out of Barack's book and says, oh, just Jordan Neely is like your son. No, he's not, because if that was my son, he would be locked up in a mental institution. Guy actually had really severe mental problems, and he had 40 different arrests, and a lot of those were, encountering people on the subway, being violent with people on the subway. So she's promoting this interview that she did with The Cut after New York City Eric Adams, the mayor there, scolded her actually for jumping to the accusation of murder before the investigation was completed there. And AOC is blaming the city that she represents in Congress for failing Neely to not meeting his needs. His family should be meeting his needs, not the entire city. Your family should be meeting your needs. We'll be back. Hey, good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. You can text in at 309-451-9299. Coming up, we are going to be talking about AOC. AOC. She's taken a page out of Barack's book, and she's saying that everybody should pretend that the beloved Michael Jackson impersonator Jordan Neely was their son. She says you should pretend like he was your son. Okay, yeah, if he was my son, he wouldn't be homeless. If he was my son, he wouldn't have 40 arrests. If he was my son, he wouldn't probably be out and about with society. I would probably put him in some sort of mental facility until he got better. And here's AOC. She did this interview with The Cut after the New York City mayor, Eric Adams, had come out. You guys remember where he kind of scolded her. He said, look, she shouldn't be coming out there and accusing the guy of murder before the investigation is complete. We need to let these people do their jobs. She blamed the city that she represents in Congress for failing Neely, for failing to meet his needs. This is hilarious. So I'm going to get into that story also coming up. 11 people arrested, and there was a Molotov cocktail that was confiscated here the other night in Manhattan after protesters clashed with the police during a demonstration over the subway sleep hold. I'm not going to call it a chokehold, and I don't even know if he really died from this hold, folks. We have no idea. Daniel Penny, I think is the Marine's name, the former Marine, and he put him in some sort of sleeper hold, and then there's new video footage that we've gotten this week that shows that Jordan Neely was moving around after he was put in the sleeper hold. And then he gets off of them, puts him in a recovery position, it appears. And I think Jordan Neely was moving after that. You could see his chest rise, his legs move a little bit. So We don't even really know if he died of a chokehold from Daniel Penny. So we're going to have to get into that story. Also, Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot issuing a state of emergency, or like an emergency proclamation in the city of Chicago. So Illinois continues to welcome illegals from the Mexican border. Now, the officials there in Chicago, they're scrambling to try to find out how to care for these people. The mayor's office yesterday released a statement explaining her reasoning for declaring the emergency. I'm going to get into that here. I just think it's so funny. You know, Chicago is a sanctuary city. And this means that the city will not ask about your immigration status, disclose information to authorities, or, most importantly, deny you city services based on your immigration status. So, the Windy City also refuses to work with immigration agencies because partnering with ICE would go against the mission to make Chicago the most immigrant-friendly city in the country, and turns our communities, turns ours into a community of fear for immigrants. So they won't work with ICE on deporting some of these people who need to be deported, like Orpeza, the guy who executed an entire family and was an illegal, and he was deported 5 times, but somehow was still in the country in Texas. They found him, by the way, after a 4-day manhunt in a closet underneath some laundry. He was hiding. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people like that in Chicago, illegal immigrants who have come into the country illegally. Maybe you should be working with ICE to deport the ones that shouldn't be here. Unfortunately, for Chicago, dreams are slamming straight into the cinder block of reality. The third largest city, Chicago's soon to be departing Mayor Lori Lightfoot, has declared the state of emergency yesterday because of this influx of illegals coming into Chicago, many of them sent by Governor Greg Abbott. So I've got that story here coming up in just a little bit. This is the Morning Buzz. It's a Wednesday morning, 49 degrees, mostly sunny. It's going to be a gorgeous day today. Don't know if you have this or not today, but I've heard yesterday featuring the hood or hood-based name was changed for a Latino army dude. I haven't heard that. Send me a message, Ryan, and I'll look into it. Yeah, so I don't know. What I was also looking into was that remember the um, guy who in Texas, I think it was Brownsville, where he had a car and he crashed into a bunch of Venezuelans. I've seen things now coming out about how that was gang related. Um, and, there's these initiations that gang members have to do, and driving into a crowd of people might have been one of those gang initiations. So, down in Allen, Texas, there was also a mass shooting. Saw the guy's tattoos. Um, and I don't know, the story gets weirder and weirder. They say that it's white supremacy, but it doesn't make sense because the guy drove from a very predominantly minority area into a white predominant area, Allen, Texas, and shot white people. So it wasn't all minorities, right? It wasn't all minorities. He did shoot white people in Allen, Texas at this mall, outside of this mall. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense that the motive would be white supremacy, as a lot of major news networks are reporting. I think in about 4 or 5 days, we're going to find out more about who that guy is. I don't know his immigration status. I'm not exactly sure where he's from. Um, but it's not lining up with white supremacy. The guy was Hispanic, Marcio Garcia. They're saying he's a white supremacist and that he was targeting minorities, but he didn't target minorities. He went to a white predominant area and shot white people. Um, so it doesn't really line up there. I don't know. And a lot of what you're seeing, NBC, AP, they'll say that sources say or officials say, but they won't name the officials. They also don't have any primary documentation of the social media, of the alleged social media posts that suggest he was a white supremacist. Um, if you want to play into the idea that, Mexicans can be white supremacists, I guess. Um, the whole definition of the word, I would imagine that that's kind of hard to be a Mexican white supremacist, but and rare, very rare. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It doesn't add up. Something doesn't add up, and I think that we will hear more about that in the coming days. Wow. Hey, good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. Hey, if you haven't yet, go nominate a farmer on our website. That's cities929.com. We're doing Feed the Farmers, and this is where we go out and we bring sandwiches from Jimmy John's to farmers who are planting during the spring. And that's all help to the good guys at Barker Chevy, Linco Precision in El Paso, Compier Financial in Pontiac, Country Financial Representative Mike Rich in Lexington, and we deliver freaky fast sandwiches to farmers working out in the fields, but we don't know who to bring them to. So be sure to go to cities929.com and nominate a hardworking farmer that you know. I'll be back on the other side. We've got some Jordan Neely updates. Okay, thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Be sure to like and share this video out with your friends. Um, Now, I'm going to get into some of the stories here. One thing that I wanted to bring to you was, being that the jury found Trump liable for the sexual abusing of E. Jean Carroll in 1996. Trump saying that, of course, this is a disgrace and he's going to be appealing that. Um, One thing that I wanted to bring you straight up, they found that she lied about the rape. This is what doesn't add up for me. They found that she lied about the rape. How can you find that he was guilty of sexually abusing if you can't prove, or if you know that she was lying about the rape, and then also demand that he pay damages for defamation, although all he simply said was that, no, I didn't rape you, and even the jury found that he that she didn't she wasn't raped by Donald Trump in 1996. So I don't know how you can sue somebody for defamation when even the jury itself said that she was lying. So the jury itself said, no, you can't get him, you can't, you weren't raped, right? That's what the jury came to a conclusion of. But yet they want him to pay her for defamation and for saying the same thing that the jury would say. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But the reason I bring that up today is because she straight up lied and she straight up took the narrative, I think, from Law and Order SVU. So I've got the story here from the New York Post. This was a little while ago. Excuse me. I am very tired. This is not kicking in. This latte. So, Donald Trump's lawyer appeared to imply that E. Jean Carroll got the idea of her rape allegations from an episode of Law and Order SVU, but she denied seeing it, and she said it was an astonishing coincidence. So it literally this plot line in this 2012 episode, and I've seen this episode. It talks about all of the details that she laid out in this, rape claim, and it's just really interesting that it lines up so closely, and it's bizarre. Um, so here we go. The 79-year-old former journalist testified that she was aware of the episode, but haven't seen it. So she said that she was aware of the episode, but she hadn't seen the episode. A brief moment of the episode, titled Theater and Tricks, involves a character talking about role-playing a rape fantasy in Bergdorf Goodman. So role play took place in the dressing room while she was trying on lingerie and would burst in. So in her lawsuit, she claims that the former commander-in-chief raped her in a fitting room in a lingerie section of the Fifth Avenue department store, most likely in 1996. So Trump, 76 years old, denies all of these allegations. I mean, this is beyond the statute of limitations, and that's what the jury said. An amazing coincidence. I just don't know how you could say it's an amazing coincidence when it lines up perfectly to this Law and Order episode. Um, Carol told the jurors that she loves Law and Order, but she said that she doesn't watch SVU because of how violent the spinoff is. So, I mean, her lawyer asked Carol, "Are you making up your allegation based on a popular TV show?" And she says no. I don't know. It's very, very similar. The whole episode is like practically word for word what she was saying Donald Trump did to her. So he's gonna do an appeal. It's just I find it interesting that they got him on the sexual abuse and on defamation when she talks about this incident and they proved that the incident didn't happen, or at least the jury didn't think it happened, or didn't hold him liable for the rape, right? And that he's not guilty of that, but yet he has to pay because he said he wasn't guilty of it. So I don't understand how that works out. But we'll get into that story here coming up in just a little bit, and then also Tucker Carlson dropping a new video on Twitter saying that he is going to be airing the Tucker Carlson show on Twitter. We'll be back here in just a little bit. So not only was our intelligence community co-opted by the Biden campaign to lie to the American people and interfere with the presidential election, but the CIA even fast-tracked the letter that falsely claimed that Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. So the CIA literally fast-tracked this letter that they knew was false. They knew it was false. They knew that the Hunter Biden laptop was out there. The CIA conspired with former acting director Mike Morrell and the Biden campaign to produce a letter falsely claiming that emails from Hunter Biden's laptop were Russian disinformation and solicited signatures from at least one former intelligence official. A staff report from the House Judiciary Committee is expected to reveal today. So this is amazing. The CIA actually fast-tracked this letter. Not only did our intelligence community create the letter that was false, but they fast-tracked it. They said, look, we need to get this out there right away because we need to meddle in the 2020 presidential election. It was rigged. This is the Morning Buzz. Good morning. How are you? This just in. The case against Donald Trump with the whole Jean Carroll in 1996, the jury found Trump liable for sexually abusing her. And Trump says that verdict is a total disgrace. Look, they're piling up. They're trying to get every conservative populist out there right now. That's clear. Tucker Carlson, Dan Bongino, Matt Walsh. There's been a lot of things come out about conservative populists lately. And I mean, Trump is used to this sort of stuff. But what really gets me about this, and I was talking about this a little bit on the Facebook Live, YouTube Live. You can see me live in the studio. What really gets me about this whole thing was that they found that he wasn't liable for the rape. They found that wasn't true, that she lied about it. But then they also want Donald Trump to pay damages for defamation, but all he did was say the same thing that the jury just concluded. The jury found that Jean Carroll lied about being raped by Trump, then holds him liable for defamation, saying that Jean Carroll lied about being raped by Donald Trump. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. This hour on the Morning Buzz, what do I want to get to? I want to get to Mayor Lori Lightfoot in Chicago because she has declared an emergency proclamation. So Illinois continues. We're a welcoming city, a sanctuary city. And I don't think a lot of people know what sanctuary city actually is or means. So let me break it down for you. What that means is that the city will not ask about your immigration status. They won't disclose that information to the authorities, or most importantly, they don't deny you city services based on your immigration status. So they treat you like a normal citizen, just a regular person, although you're here illegally. That's what a sanctuary city is. They don't deport you. They don't report you to ICE. They don't work with ICE. The Windy City Chicago refuses to work with immigration agencies because, quote, partnering with ICE would go against our mission to make Chicago the most immigrant-friendly city in the country and turns ours into a community of fear for immigrants. So they, at the risk of turning into a community of fear for immigrants, they don't work with ICE to deport criminals like Orpeza, a guy who literally went into somebody's home and executed an entire family. He was deported 5 times. Still somehow was in the country. Don't know how. But he was in the country, and Chicago refuses to deport people like Orpeza. That's the thing. Unfortunately, the dreams here are slamming straight into the cinder block of reality, and this is one of the Chicago, third largest city in the country, and the soon-to-be departing mayor, Lori Lightfoot, she has now declared a state of emergency because of this influx of illegal aliens, illegal immigrants. Many of them sent up to us by Texas Republican Governor Greg Abbott. So, want to get into this story here. Also, a little bit later, AOC is telling me that I have to treat Jordan Neely like he was my own son and pretend that he was my own son. Look, if he was my own son, he would not be homeless. He would not have 40 arrests and an outstanding warrant for his arrest on felony assault, which is punishable up to 15 years in the state of New York. And by definition, means that you are being accused of seriously harming someone intentionally. Yeah, no, that would not be my son, so I'm not going to pretend that would be my son. Sorry, AOC. You're taking a page out of 2012 Barack Obama's books when he said, if I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon Martin. I'm not really great at Obama impressions, but you get it. So she comes out, she does this interview, she's promoting this interview that she did with The Cut, this propaganda news outlet, after the New York City mayor, Eric Adams, comes out and he says, look, little lady, I'm scolding you. You probably shouldn't have said that he killed him or that he murdered him before the investigation has been completed. Again, she's blaming the city that she represents in Congress for failing Neely and not meeting his needs, because apparently it's my job to make sure Neely is okay, and it's not his family's job. So his family's all upset about, the death, which we don't even really know at this point if it was due to the chokehold. We don't know if it was due to the sleeper hold that Daniel Penny had put him in on the subway. But now I've got 11 people arrested, and a Molotov cocktail was confiscated the other night in Manhattan after protesters clashed with the police during this demonstration over the subway sleep hold of Jordan Neely. So I'm going to get into all of that, but Mayor Lori Lightfoot, her office released a statement explaining why she's declaring an emergency. So Lori Lightfoot issued an emergency declaration in response to the surge of new arrivals since last month, with large numbers of people, mostly families, arriving to Chicago, and following the arrival today of 48 individuals and families inhumanely bused to Chicago by Texas Governor Greg Abbott. Since August of 2022, the city has coordinated with departmental citywide strategy in partnership with the state and Cook County for receiving and providing emergency care for over 8,000 new arrivals. So since August of 2022, they've gotten like 8,000 new arrivals. Just as of yesterday, they had near 50 people be bused there. So this is incredible, because this is probably her last big move as mayor, because she recently was voted out. She's going to be leaving May 15th. So we've got Gremlin, Lori Lightfoot. She's out there calling for a state of emergency during this time with the illegal alien influx. But guess who didn't call a state of emergency during the George Floyd riots and we watched the city burn? Chicagoans have lived in fear of violent crime and death ever since. Ever since George Floyd, the city has not returned to the same state. It's destroyed. There's crime everywhere. I just talked about a 20-year prosecutor in Cook County. His name's Jason Poirier, and he is done. He is done trying to prosecute crime in the state's attorney's office of Cook County because they don't do the jobs. They're pushing political agendas, and they're more concerned with the popular political agenda and not bringing violent criminals to justice. So, talk about having your priorities straight. She didn't declare a state of emergency when George Floyd riots were happening and the city was literally burning down, and she didn't declare an emergency then. Now she's declaring it because of this illegal immigrant influx that she practically was begging for. If you're a sanctuary city, you're like practically begging for illegal immigrants to come to your city and to use your services. So Abbott's frustration has grown over time as President basement dweller Joe Biden's disastrous border policies have taken a tremendous toll on Texas towns and cities. We can see that by the violent crime happening, people mowing down people in their cars, mass shootings, families being executed in their homes by these crazy people like Orpeza, like Marcio Garcia. Now, I'm not talking about their immigration. I have no idea what their immigration status is. All I know is that Texas, I mean, their crime is going absolutely insane. They've got a lot of things happening down in Texas, and maybe they can't stretch themselves very, very far as law enforcement because they're dealing with the illegal aliens. So they can't catch people like Marcio Garcia, the guy who had the mall shooting in Allen, Texas, and killed people, or the guy who mowed down people with his car, Venezuelans with his car in Brownsville, Texas. So, yeah, it's just a mess in Texas. So I don't blame Greg Abbott at all for shipping people up to Chicago, New York, Washington, D.C., because they say they're sanctuary cities. They say that they can do this and that they want this. Of course, officials in all of these cities are wailing and they're crying, and they're criticizing Greg Abbott, and they're saying that he's inhumane. He's inhumane. They're screaming this at the top of at the top of their lungs. You see, they support Joe Biden and his immigration policies. They just don't want the problem in their backyard. So at the end of the day, what they say, they're like, what? We should just have Texas and Arizona deal with this kind of stuff. Now, it's Chicago that's treating illegal aliens like freight, actually. It's not Greg Abbott. Greg Abbott is putting them on a bus and making it Lori Lightfoot's problem. But there's video out there, and it looks as if these illegal families are taking shelter inside of Chicago's 19th Police District, and these illegal aliens appear to be sleeping on the floor without proper access to showers or bathrooms. So they're treating these people like freight in Chicago. This is about to get worse, because Title 42 expires May 11th, and there is going to be waves of illegals, and it's going to intensify. So my suggestion is that Joe Biden needs to stop pretending that the border is not a massive crisis, and these people, Lori Lightfoot, Eric Adams, what they need to do is stop crying about it, and they need to just do their fair share. And they need to just shut up. You said you were a sanctuary city. Do it. Do it. Or you need to come out against Joe Biden. One of the two. Stop being a hypocrite. AOC, she's promoting this interview that she did with The Cut after Eric Adams scolded her about jumping to the accusation of murder before the investigation was completed. Now, this has to deal with Jordan Neely, the homeless Michael Jordan impersonator, because he was just so beloved. He was just such a great guy. So she's taken a page out of Barack Obama's book. And you guys remember when Barack Obama said, you know, if I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon Martin. So AOC has taken a page out of that book. And she says that, you know, we should think of Jordan Neely as our son. We should think of him as your son. If you're listening, right? He's your son. No. And my son wouldn't be homeless. He wouldn't have 40 arrests racked up. He wouldn't have an outstanding arrest for felony assault, seriously injuring someone with intent. That's the definition in the state of New York. Surprisingly, we've got AOC here, and this woman, Elizabeth Spear, with The Cut, she claimed that the subway was perfectly safe if, you don't mind being groped, I guess, on the subway, because it's not safe. The Cut asked AOC about the subway, and she says that the subway is ultimately a public space. And she goes, I've spent countless hours on the subway. I still take it to this day. Oh, look at you. It's a mirror to our society. When our policies drive up homelessness, you will see more homeless people on the subway. Yeah, your policies. Last I checked, you're the congresswoman in your district, lady. You're the one who's got all of these policies. Alvin Bragg, Manhattan DA, soft on crime. These are the policies that make this environment unsafe. And she goes on, she says, when our policies create unsafe environment, we're bound to feel less safe on the subway. That's your policies you're talking about. Whose policies are you talking about? They're yours. I myself felt unsafe on the subway. I've left train cars. I've had men follow me around, but never, ever, ever have I felt the desire to harm that person, nor have I ever seen anyone else try to. Look, I know this from seeing AOC personally in Washington, D.C. I was there and I saw her, and it was so hard to even get access to her. I tried to get an interview with her, but she was surrounded by security. She had a guy with her. She had a couple of other people with her. She was surrounded by security. So she is never in harm's way ever. And she is pretending that she is one of you, and she's not. She's an elitist, and she's in an elitist class. And she's virtue signaling. So 309-451-9299. I've got to take a break, but we'll be back on the other side. So, what Title 42 was doing was that if you were coming in from a different country, you had to be checked for communicable diseases, and that takes time. So, you're right in that the border is already open, but Title 42 kind of was in place, and I don't know how enforced it really was. But word's gotten out that it is going to be lifting. And now what we're going to see are people just flooding the border who thought that they were going to enforce Title 42. Now the illegals are going to say, well, they're not going to enforce Title 42 anymore. Now we can go. Um, I think they probably could have gotten in anyway, because I don't think that they were enforcing Title 42. But these are all of the people who thought that they'd be stopped at the border for Title 42, communicable diseases. And now they're coming and they're saying, oh, well, now I can go to the border now. So we're expecting 700,000 to a million. And they're camping out right now. And as soon as that's like lifted, I guess that's when they're going to flood. I don't know. It's like similar to an invasion. I don't know what's going on. But I don't think that we should have lifted for. I think Title 42 should be in place always, and I've said this from the very beginning. Why would we not have something like Title 42 in place? Hey, good morning. Notice how Democrats like to use the word humane when talking about immigration? Listen to them address the absolute cluster happening right now, and they'll use it nearly every time. They're going to use the word humane, 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 humane. It's actually just a signal to all the other Democrats listening. It's a tribal identifier. It means they're willing to do anything that they're not willing to do anything meaningful or willing to do anything meaningful to fix the border. It means they will prioritize people breaking into our country over actual Americans. They're going to prioritize that, but they will also, if you're too white or too rich, um, and oppressive to be politically useful to them. So they care and they prioritize the people who are breaking into the country illegally, but they're not going to care about you if you're white, if you're too rich, and oppressive to be politically useful for them. So they know the border is a humanitarian disaster, but if they spoke out, um, spoke out, AOC, La Raza might come after them. That's the thing. And they would rather let the country be destroyed than take that risk. Humane plus Democrat plus immigration equals open borders. Remember that. That's from Charlie Kirk this morning. And yes, it is. It's that word humane. Whenever you hear it on a talking head show today, because you're going to hear it a lot, just know that that's a tribal signal. And that's their word. 309-451-9299. Did want to talk about this a little bit, and then we're going to get to Scott's takes. This is National Dog Week, or Pet Week. It's National Pet Week, and I had some do's and don'ts for elderly dogs. So I like pulling these. Some good news for your Wednesday morning. Do keep an eye for any changes to your dog's both physical and also mental health, anything that differs from the norm. So if the dog lays in a different spot, that might be like a mental health change for your elderly dog. Put your own agenda and lifestyle before your dog, before the dog. Ensure their walks are tailored to their age and try to minimize drastic changes to their lifestyle or routine. So make sure you keep up with your lifestyle, like the lifestyle that you've had with this dog the entire time. So changing up your lifestyle to try to cater to the dog actually could harm the dog. So do keep an eye out for changes with your dog, both physically and mentally, but don't put your own agenda and lifestyle, or do put your own lifestyle before the dog, and don't change it too drastically. Do remember to put your dog's ability, or remember your dog's abilities might be changing. So remember that older dogs may struggle on hardwood floors, for example. So maybe putting some rugs down will help with mobility. Don't dismiss an older dog by presuming they don't want to still be active. So a lot of times what people do is they'll say, oh, my dog's too old, we're not going to go out on the walk. Maybe the dog is still in good condition and will want to keep active. You just might have to change the activity a little bit more. So instead of going for a 3-mile walk, you might want to take them on a walk around the block. So do keep the brain active by engaging in simple training exercises like shake. Those can be good for mental health. Consider teaching these tricks, running through your legs. So getting like a little treat and trying to get the dog to run between your legs. Dancing, great for dogs with wiggly butts, so you can try to train them to dance. And then shaking, of course, with its paw, saying shake. Walking backwards and putting their toys away is another big one. And speaking. So those are some tricks that you can teach your dog. I don't know, teach an old dog new tricks. I don't know if that works. It says that the saying goes you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but I don't know, if it keeps their brain active, maybe you should try. 309-451-9299. It's National Pet Week, so those are some do's and don'ts for your elderly dog. On the other side, Scott Robbins will be joining me for Scott's Takes. This is not Bill O'Reilly leaving. This is
No,
Tucker
it's
Carlson.
not.
It's bigger than that. Scott Robbins says so on the Morning Buzz. Here, I'm Kat Peterson. Good morning, Scott.
Good morning. I don't know if on your way to work this morning when you got out of the car, you heard a popping sound. You wonder, what is that? That was the sounds of liberal heads exploding yesterday. The shrieking, the heads on fire, sky yelling that was going on. Tucker Carlson yesterday announced where he was going to be, what he's going to be doing next. He's going to team up with Elon Musk, essentially, and they're going to be on Twitter. He's going to run a show on Twitter.
Well, they had to do this. Tucker had to do something because, you know, a human, I think we form habits in 29 days. So he's only got like a few weeks span to get the people who, you know, have a habit of watching something at, you know, at 8 o'clock prime time, right? At that time of night. And they're going different places right now. And eventually they're going to start to build some sort of trust with the place that they went or are going to. For example, my brother, he just tuned into Tucker Carlson, not super political. He says that he likes this new guy on Newsmax, and he can't remember his name.
Which is a problem.
He can't remember the guy on Newsmax's name, but eventually he will start to remember it. So Tucker Carlson had to do something here fast because he's getting close to that 3-week time period where people are going to start remembering the name of the Newsmax guy instead.
I want to disagree with you, and there are certain things I do disagree with you on when you say that, because I think all those rules that were in place regarding media and media personalities went out the window with that guy. One guy. Now, I would tend to agree with you on the Bill O'Reilly thing, because I remember, what are they going to do without Bill O'Reilly? And they had Tucker Carlson. They got no bench right now. I mean, there's no bench. There's no obvious successor to Tucker Carlson living on the Fox planet right now. No. There just isn't one. This guy is, and you can like him or hate him, and you can yell at me all you want. You can call him an extremist and propagandist and whatever. Fact of the matter is, you can never take away the audience size this guy had. He was carrying that network in the primetime slot. You think Sean Hannity isn't feeling it right now? He's getting knocked around, man. This was a guy who was, and I'm going to go ahead and use the word because I think it works here. He was bigger than the product. Yep. He was bigger than where he was. He was Michael Jordan of Fox. How come Michael Jordan didn't practice as hard as the other guys did? Because he's Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan could show up when he wanted to. Come game time, he was ready to roll. Mm-hmm. That's the way it is with this guy. There are rules for everyone else, then there were rules for Tucker, or there should have been. If you're smart enough to figure that out. But apparently they weren't smart enough to figure that out. So he's going to take his ball and he's going to give them their $25 million back, and he's going to go onto Twitter, and he's going to be able to do essentially whatever he wants. Now Elon Musk is saying all the right things, if you've noticed. It's like, well, we've got safety guards for everyone. He's going to have to. He can't go on there with just, blabber and nonsense. It's going to have to be backed up with truth and all this. I mean, he's saying all the right things because he has to right now. And he is. That's what he's saying. This show very easily could change the course of media forever. And I don't think I'm being hyperbolic here when I say that.
No.
This mainstream media is digging the grave right now. They're going to put themselves into it.
Oh, I think they're in it. Legacy media, I think it's dead.
Legacy media is in real trouble. And those crusty, dusty, old, the right thing to do, cocktail parties with the mayor. That type of nonsense is over. It's over. And if you're still doing that, and if that's what you're doing and that's what you're presenting, you lose. This is the way this is going to work here on out. And there's a new sheriff in town, and that sheriff is going to rewrite the rules. I'm telling you. Mm-hmm. That's where this is going to go. He's going to crash the servers. I mean, when this happens, well, they may not. With Elon Musk will get it right, I'm sure. But this will revolutionize, and we will remember the moment it happened. And again, you can laugh all you want. You can say, well, I'm not right-wing nut job. He doesn't have the vehicle of Fox anymore. He doesn't need it. He doesn't need it. Mm-hmm. So we'll see what happens after that. And really, it could change the course of talk radio. It could change the course of everything. We'll see where it goes. But definitely TV, media.
Yeah. Yep. It's going to change it.
And case in point today. I mean, I'm watching today. They do a 10 to 12 minute interview with Savannah Guthrie with Jean Carroll. Is that her name? I forget her name. Is that her name? Okay. The woman that alleged that Trump had raped her, or whatever. She won the civil suit. One of the portions of the civil suit yesterday, right? Mm-hmm. But again, you give her. She's on there for like 12 minutes today.
No one
and
cares.
They're clutching their pearls and they're
1996, and it literally looks like a Law and Order SVU episode, like word for word.
Well, didn't they ask her about that?
They did. The attorneys
deposition?
did. Yeah, the attorneys asked her, and she was like, "Well, I am a fan of the show. I haven't seen that episode.
Yeah,
but why does it seem so close to this episode?" Well, she goes, "I think it's an astonishing coincidence." Yeah,
sure is.
Yeah, sure is.
And again, I mean, if Donald Trump did what she claims he did, then he should be held accountable for it. Period. But now that the verdict is in, now you're gonna bash him for 12 more minutes on the air, because that's what you do. I mean, that's what you do. And
Nobody likes it. Nobody likes it. No eyeballs are watching.
It's just a bad deal. All right, moving on. But anyway, the Tucker Carlson thing, and I thought he set it up nicely. You probably played the audio this morning, didn't you?
Oh yeah.
Or a piece of the audio. We won't play the whole thing, right? Because it's really long. But
yeah, it's like 3 minutes.
This is just part of it, just so you have some kind of idea. This is what he said yesterday.
Hey, it's Tucker Carlson. You often hear people say the news is full of lies. But most of the time, that's not exactly right. Much of what you see on television or read the New York Times is, in fact, true in the literal sense. It could pass one of the media's own fact checks. Lawyers would be willing to sign off on it. In fact, they may have. But that doesn't make it true. It's not true. At the most basic level, the news you consume is a lie of the stealthiest and most insidious kind. Facts have been withheld on purpose, along with proportion and perspective. You are being manipulated. How does that work? Let's see. If I tell you that a man has been unjustly arrested for armed robbery, that is not, strictly speaking, a lie. He may have been framed. At this point, there's been no trial, so no one can really say. But if I don't mention the fact that the same man has been arrested for the same crime 6 times before, am I really informing you? No, I'm not. I'm misleading you. And that's what the news media are doing in every story that matters, every day of the week, every week of the year.
That's true. That's 100% true. So there you go. So I'm just telling you, old school, pat yourself on the back. Let's smoke a cigar and talk about the people's lives we've ruined. Your time's coming. Mm-hmm. It's coming. New York City Mayor Eric Adams is in the news today. Eric Adams is mad right now. I just want you to know. The mayor of New York is mad. The mayor of Chicago, still Lori Lightfoot, is mad. Mayor of Philadelphia. There's mayors all over this country right now who are angry, very angry at Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas. Now, what's the sin of Greg Abbott? Well, Greg Abbott's like, hey, listen, I've got illegals streaming across the border in Brownsville and Corpus Christi and other places of Texas. I can't hold this anymore. We can't do this. We can't. And this current administration is doing nothing to stop it. It's almost as if they're encouraging it. So Greg Abbott said, we're going to do exactly what DeSantis did, only we're going to do it in a big, bold way. We're going to ship these people to these sanctuary cities. These are cities that describe themselves as, we're welcoming. Mm-hmm. We're not like those southern cities in Texas and awful Florida. We're welcoming. And so the governors there went, okay, all right, welcoming city, here you go. Now, Eric Adams is bitching and whining because he has, well, it's costing us money. We don't have running out of room, and we don't have any place to put these people. It's inhumane. And the whole time, like Pritzker. Pritzker's the same way.
Yeah.
We're a sanctuary city in Chicago.
Bloomington,
sanctuary
normal.
state.
We're sanctuary cities.
Yeah.
We're both of them. Bloomington
that's your guy who's doing a great job. That guy right there. Mm-hmm. But then go ahead. Send him to Chicago. Send him up there. Well, it's too dangerous for them to be there. I mean, they're fleeing a country who's probably more safe than Chicago.
Yeah.
But at any rate, well, then ship them. This is what's going to happen. Do you think these guys are just going to keep taking it over and over and over again? They can't. They also have to be responsive to the people that voted for them and put them in office. And these people are throwing their hands up going, we can't do this anymore. Now, when Title 42 ends, which is coming up real soon, Kat, you have the Title 42 ending clock on?
Yes, it's tomorrow.
It won't be long.
Tick, tick, tick.
And we all know this, right? We know this is happening.
See, and one thing I want to ask you, Scott, is so why do you think that the border is already open? So why don't they just come in now? Why are they waiting until Title 42 is lifted? I guess it's the people who think they're going to be stopped by Title 42.
Yeah, I suppose it is. And I suppose, too, that it is a green light for a solid forever now.
Yes.
I mean, it's just a solid forever green light. You can come in whenever you want.
Yeah.
Stay as long as you want. Be here illegally for as long as you want. Do whatever you want. I mean, that's what this administration is doing. So Mayorkas, who somehow still has a job, everybody in this cabinet still has a job, which is amazing to me. Mayorkas, who's lied to us, just absolutely lied under oath in Congress.
The border's secure.
This guy has lied. Yeah, the border is closed. He's repeated that mantra I don't know how many times. The border's not open. It's closed. Well, it isn't. It isn't. And if you spend any time down there at all, where these people are pouring across the border, you would know that. So, hey, Eric Adams, go pound sand. I don't care. I don't care. Of course it's crazy. Of course it's untenable. I get it. Same thing in Chicago. Same thing in these other liberal sanctuary cities.
Don't be a sanctuary city then.
Yeah, don't have your hand up unless you want to be called on in class. You're getting called on now. Mm-hmm. There you go. All right. Life's lessons. That's right. We've learned today. Keep your hand down. Don't raise it unless you want to participate. Yeah. If you don't want to participate, don't put your hand up. All right. Kat, have a good day. Talk to you later. All right.
Talk to you later, Scott Robbins.
See ya.
Scott Robbins is on later tonight, folks. It's Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins. It starts at 8 o'clock on Cities 92.9. We'll be back. I'm going to run through, actually, Tucker Carlson's attorneys. Not so happy with Fox News. I've got more. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. You can text in at 309-451-9299. We've got so much to get to today. And, I want to get into the 11 people who were arrested recently in Manhattan. They've confiscated a Molotov cocktail. And this happens after these protesters had a clash with the police during this demonstration over the subway sleep hold of Jordan Neely. We don't know if he died from the sleep hold. We still don't know. From what I can see is that I don't even know if Jordan Neely had a hand in killing the kid or killing the Jordan Neely guy, and not kid, a grown man. I don't know, because according to this video, he puts him in the sleeper hold, takes him out of the sleeper hold, puts him in a recovery position to try to get more airway to him. Then you see his leg move. Then you see his chest move up and down. And I don't know if he was dead on arrival of the ambulance, if the ambulance took him away. But we don't know anything still. And I think there's a reason for that. But also, we've got AOC coming out there and saying that we should pretend that Jordan Neely was one of our own and one of our, like our own son, this Michael Jackson impersonator, because he's just a beloved Michael Jackson impersonator. Okay? Come on, give me a break with all that. The guy had 40 arrests, and he had a standing arrest, a warrant out for his arrest for felony assault. Guy was homeless. Look, you can't tell me to pretend that this guy was my son. My son would definitely not be homeless, and he definitely would not have 40 arrests racked up. So I'm going to get to this story here coming up in just a little bit. And then the story of the day that I want you to really internalize is this Cook County, Chicago, another county prosecutor resigning, citing bond reform policies, this end of cash bail, and malicious treatment of law enforcement officers is the reason that the city is, quote, on a course to disaster. Got this story here next for you on the Morning Buzz. first, let's talk about it. Tucker Carlson announced via a Twitter a video. He posted it yesterday afternoon, and he says that a new version of his show, plus some other things too, are coming back soon and will air on Twitter. I'm super excited. Now, he's been locked in negotiations with Fox News for more than 2 weeks since the network abruptly took him off air, claiming that they had to agree to part ways. So essentially firing him from his show. They agreed to pay him because, of course, he was still under contract until January of 2025. Now, his legal team has sent Fox a demand letter claiming that they breached the contract. So a bunch of things are happening here. I'm going to unpack it, but I also want to take a look at this Cook County, Chicago. Another county prosecutor has resigned, citing bond reform policies and malicious treatment of law enforcement officers as reasons to that the city is on a course to disaster. So this is a big deal because this is at least the third high-profile resignation for the state's attorney's office there in Cook County. Let's take a listen here, shall we?
One of the familiar faces of the Cook County State's Attorney's Office has resigned after 25 years. Jim Murphy wrote in a message sent to staff in the office that he wishes he could stay, but says he can no longer work for the administration, saying, quote, "I have zero confidence in their leadership." He's referring to State's Attorney Kim Foxx. Murphy writes, "It started when the Safety Act, which passed in 2021, eliminating cash bail that'll take effect in January of next year. He states he supports eliminating cash bail, but believed the legislation was a PR stunt." Murphy also wrote he believes the administration is more concerned with political narratives and agendas than victims and prosecuting violent crime.
So I just played for you that clip, and that was from last year. That's James Murphy, who resigned. Now, this is the third high-profile resignation of a career prosecutor in Cook County. Now, the Cook County prosecutor is quitting after 20 years, and, quote, he's saying that this state and this county have set themselves up for the course, on a course to disaster. Those are some strong words. Now, this is from CWB Chicago, and please go follow them for stories about crime in major cities like Chicago. That's where I get my all my stories from. This 20-year veteran prosecutor walked out of the Cook County State's Attorney's Office for the last time on Friday. So he just walked out. Jason Poye. He's a longtime felony trial attorney for the office and has entered 2-week notice on April 21st, and he is moving on. He's moving on to the next chapter of his life, folks, and he said goodbye to 85 of his colleagues in an email. And I want to read through this email because it is scathing. It is so important, and I hope that you read the email later today, maybe on your lunch break. He says farewell, and he thanked and he appreciates all of his colleagues, but he explained why he had to leave. And here it goes. After 20 years, I always kind of figured an email like this would start with, "It is with a heavy heart that I leave. But the truth is, I can't get out of here fast enough. Let me start with the positive. Not a single day has gone by that I have not felt truly honored to work with such incredible people who spend every waking hour on behalf of the victims. This opportunity has been a gift for which I have no words to explain the extent of my gratitude." So he goes in, he says, "My partners are victim witnesses, advocates, and investigators, support staff, police officers, detectives, time after time. I see you putting everything you have into helping people we encounter on the worst days of their lives." And he goes on, he says, "So often I see personal lives and indeed at times our own well-being, our personal lives and our own well-being set aside to do just a little bit more for that last case, for that last victim. And I've seen nothing short of inspiring, not as a lawyer, but as a person." So he talks about the good things about his job where people are helping victims, and we aren't doing that anymore as a state, as a county. In Cook County, I think that we've got great law enforcement, great state's attorney here, Erica Reynolds. How long that lasts, I don't know, because they're not able to keep attorneys or get new attorneys, and that's not me saying it, that's Erica Reynolds. She says that they can't get attorneys, and I'll get to that here in a second. But I want to continue with this letter because it's so scathing. This is from Jason Poye, and he is the third resignation just in the last year here of the state's attorney's office in Cook County there. So he says, and yet I'm leaving. Why could that be? The simple fact is that the state and the county have set themselves up on a course to disaster. The worst part of this agency for whom I work has backed literally every policy that had the predictable and predicted outcome of more crime and more people getting hurt. Kim Fox, that's who he's talking about there. Bond reform designed to make sure no one stays in jail while their cases are pending with no safety net to handle more criminals on the street. Shorter parole periods, lower sentences for repeat offenders, the malicious and unnecessary prosecution of law enforcement officers. Let me repeat that. The malicious and unnecessary prosecution of law enforcement officers, the use of diversion programs, intentionally not pursuing prosecutions for crimes lawfully on the books after being passed by our legislature and signed by our governor. And all of these so-called reforms have a direct negative impact with consequences that's going to will last for a generation. So he's talking about this case here. You've heard it in the news. The murder suspect, Buchanan, or whatever his name is. He's a murder suspect on the run. Trial's going ahead without him. They had to select new jury members in case they saw social media posts or articles about him running. He cut off his ankle monitor. There was a statewide public alert issued by the McLean County government, Sheriff's Office, right, Matt Lane. They're trying to find him. They're going to proceed with the jury and the trial. He's on trial for murder. Don't know how he got bail. And this is my thing, is we are so soft on crime that we're giving murder suspects a chance at bail. I don't know who signed off on that. I'm going to find out. Whoever signed off on giving this guy bail at all. I mean, it should have been revoked. He's a murder suspect. Being accused of shooting somebody right outside of a bar in the wee hours of the night. Come on. Not two people, actually. One person died. Come on. We shouldn't be giving murder suspects bond. And people are going to say, oh, well, Kat, that's the problem with cash bail. Shut up. Shut up. We shouldn't be giving murder suspects cash bond. And for these, other crimes, maybe lower level crimes, nonviolent crimes, cash bail prevents them from skipping out on their trials, prevents them from not going to court and going and committing more crimes. So stop with the nonsense. Cash bail is good. Okay. So in this letter by Jason, he goes on and he says, many years ago, my family found a nice quiet corner of the suburbs. Now my son, who is only 5 years old, hears gunfire while playing at our neighborhood park, and there's a drug dealer who open air sells behind my house. If it were just me to consider, I'd stick it out. I've been through stupid attorney policies before, but this office's complete failure to even think for a moment before rushing into one popular political agenda after another has put my family directly in harm's way. So this isn't about him. This is about his family now. And he says that this is, they rush into the popular political agenda and they don't think about it. And he's dealt with crappy policies before from the state's attorney's office, but nothing quite like this. So the current people in charge of this state, including the state's attorney's office, suffer from a fundamental misunderstanding. We live in a society with adversarial court and criminal justice processes. Defense attorneys, legal aid clinics, public defenders, defendant advocate groups, they fight like hell to protect the rights of criminal defendants. Okay? And then, as they should fight like hell to protect those people and their rights as criminals. Their work is as noble as those of ours. And he's talking about the prosecutors. But we have an obligation to fight like hell on behalf of the people to keep them safe. It should go without saying that this must be done ethically and even-handedly. When both sides vigorously defend their positions, a balance is reached between protecting rights and preserving some order and safety. once we start doing too much of the defense's job, once we pull our punches, once we decide that it's worth risking citizens' lives to have a little social experiment here, all of that balance is lost. That's the thing. The prosecutors aren't doing their jobs. They're doing the defense attorneys' jobs. The unavoidable consequences are what we are witnessing in real time, an increase in crime of all kinds, businesses and families pulling up the stakes, and the bodies are piling up the whole time with the state's attorney who insists that there's nothing to see here. And if there is, it's got to be somebody else's fault. And then they wonder why they cannot retain experienced prosecutors or even hire new ones. We have Erica Reynolds, saying maybe people aren't just going to law school. Of course not, because any true prosecutor recognizes the importance of this balance. They recognize the importance of prosecutors and defense attorneys. There has to be a balance. And they will not be permitted to be a prosecutor under this administration. Any true prosecutor will not be permitted. So he goes on and he says, I'm not going to raise my son here in the state of Illinois anymore. And I'm fortunate enough to have the means to escape. Like, how true is that to your soul? I mean, so he says, my entire family is leaving the state of Illinois. I grew up here. My family, my friends are here. And yet my own employer has turned it into a place from which I am no longer to be proud of, and in which my son is not safe. So he goes on in this letter, and he says, I hope one day you are successful. He says this to the people he's leaving behind. To everyone in the trenches, in the state's attorney's office, and in law enforcement, my one regret is that I cannot be by your side anymore as you continue your fight to fight the good fight. I do not envy the task that you have before you, but you have my utmost respect for carrying on. I hope that one day you are successful at returning some kind of common sense and security to our communities. So this is the third high-profile resignation within the state's attorney's office there in Cook County. We also had James Murphy in July of 2022, and then this past February we had Natasha Toller. All very similar situations. Fox herself is not running for re-election. The bodies are piling up. They're stacking up. And I hope and pray that one day you as an Illinois parent do not have to put a tiny little casket into the ground because of a drive-by or because of a carjacking. And I sure hope Governor JB, he wakes up. And I'm praying for a revival of his soul because he's got to see the damage that he's doing here. And once he sees that damage, I hope that he begins to repair it. 309-451-9299. You can always text in. Tucker Carlson, I'm going to be talking about him next here on the Morning Buzz. He announced in a Twitter video on Tuesday afternoon that there's going to be a new version of his show, plus some other things coming to Twitter. So I'm super excited. Did you guys see that CNBC actually is back on Twitter? So, like so many other drama queens before them, CBC, Canada Broadcast Company, they're returning to Twitter after stomping their feet and they're rage quitting. So I think WGLT, NPR, all of them, they all raged quit Twitter. Elon Musk, the head twit in charge, is of course welcoming them back in open arms. He posted a really hilarious meme about it. So I'll be back on the other side to unpack it all. This is the Morning Buzz. We are going to be back here in just a little bit. So funny. The Canadian Broadcast Network, they're back on Twitter. I have to give them credit, though. At least they stuck it out. I mean, I think they quit, like, for about a month. Now, that's longer than the drama queens like CBS News and the social media influencer, AOC. They barely lasted a weekend. Issues developed when Twitter started to correctly label the Canadian Broadcast Company as a state-funded media. That's factually true. The Canadian government funds Canadian Broadcast Company, and there was some dispute over how much they were funded, but Elon settled on 69%. I'll get that total here. Woo! Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. I am going to get into Tucker Carlson. There's some new things coming out here just prior to him releasing this video out on Twitter saying that his show's going to return and it's going to air on Twitter. His attorneys actually sent a letter to Fox accusing them of fraud and breaching of a contract. So I'm going to get into this here on the Morning Buzz. But first, I did want to talk about CBC. So this is the Canadian Broadcast Company. And like so many other drama queens, they stomped their feet. They were like, oh, darn Twitter, we hate it. We're going to rage quit. So they rage quit about a month ago. And they're back now because, yeah, they couldn't last without Twitter. Elon Musk, the head twit in charge, of course, welcomed them back with open arms. He had a hilarious meme out there. But they put out this tweet. They said, today, the CBC will resume some activity on a handful of Twitter accounts, including CBC News. But we will significantly reduce our overall Twitter footprint and continue to assess the platform against our social media strategy. This is hilarious. Hey, at least the network, right? The news network, I say that with quotations, lasted about a month. I mean, that was more than the drama queens like CBS and AOC, CBS News and the social media influencer AOC. They barely lasted a weekend. So issues started to arise when Elon, he labeled NPR, which is true. They are government funded. CBC as a state funded media. Factually true. All of that's true. The Canadian government funds the Canadian Broadcast Company. Wow. And there was some dispute over about how much, but Elon, he settled on 69%. So he's trolling him with 69%. So he's been very aggressive in going after corporate media lately, and he changed the NPR and how they were classified on Twitter to accurately reflect its alliance with the United States government. He said, like, United States government funded. And he totally dismantled a BBC reporter, the claims about hate speech. We remember this. And he was trolling them with this whole 69% government funded. And he said that it's 69% government funded. So he was trolling them, obviously, because you get it, 69. I don't need to get into it, but yes, so they're back on Twitter. I wish I could say I missed them. I didn't. CBC News swears it's unbiased journalism that operates independent of the government that funds them, as opposed to the media outlets in America that shill for the government free of charge. So that's pretty funny. CBC actually gets a lot of funding, and there's some media outlets here in the United States and even statewide that shill for the government, and they do it totally for free. Also, the fact that CBC and CBC News is totes independent from tried to pressure Twitter to remove posts critical of the government, which is coinkydink, right? So there was a time where CBC was trying to get Twitter to remove bad things or try to censor users who were speaking badly about Trudeau. And there were documents that showed that the head of Trudeau's CBC state broadcaster told Twitter that they have to censor these tweets or Trudeau would bring in laws to force them to do so. So there's all kinds of documented evidence that CBC was trying to bully Twitter into removing certain posts about Trudeau. Otherwise, they were going to get Trudeau to bring down the law and force them to censor accounts that were critical of the government. Whatever, it's all in the past. CBC News came back crawling, and I wish I could say I missed him. Anyway, so let's talk about Tucker Carlson. And the reason I bring this up today is because legacy media is dead. It's dead. It's not dying. It's dead. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about CNN, the talking shows. Nobody cares who's on the cover of People magazine. Nobody cares about the Met Gala or the Grammys or the Oscars or whatever stuff they have on their talking head shows. Tucker Carlson releases this video. I'm going to play it here for you on Twitter just a little bit. Here we go.
Hey, it's Tucker Carlson. You often hear people say the news is full of lies, but most of the time that's not exactly right. Much of what you see on television or read the New York Times is in fact true in the literal sense. It could pass one of the media's own fact checks. Lawyers would be willing to sign off on it. In fact, they may have. But that doesn't make it true. It's not true. At the most basic level, the news you consume is a lie of the stealthiest and most insidious kind. Facts have been withheld on purpose, along with proportion and perspective. You are being manipulated. How does that work? Let's see. If I tell you that a man has been unjustly arrested for armed robbery, that is not, strictly speaking, a lie. He may have been framed. At this point, there's been no trial, so no one can really say. But if I don't mention the fact that the same man has been arrested for the same crime 6 times before, am I really informing you? No, I'm not. I'm misleading you. And that's what the news media are doing in every story that matters, every day of the week, every week of the year. What's it like to work in a system like that? After more than 30 years in the middle of it, we could tell you stories. The best you can hope for in the news business at this point is the freedom to tell the fullest truth that you can. But there are always limits. And you know that if you bump up against those limits often enough, you will be fired for it. That's not a guess. It's guaranteed.
There you have it. Tucker Carlson. It's a longer video. I encourage you to go watch it if you haven't yet. Carlson has been locked in negotiations with Fox News for a couple of weeks now, and he's getting to this 3rd week, and he's got to do something because that's about the time when people start to find other things to fill their habitual TV watching, right? Everybody sits down at night, watches Tucker Carlson, 3 million people, right? That's how many eyeballs he had on the screen. Now, I do think that they are all going to flock to Twitter to watch him. Now, maybe some of his audience won't, but he's already come out and said that this is just a start, right? This is more of a start, and I think it's a great start. And eventually, I think that he's going to get on other platforms, and I'm hoping that Twitter kind of works with him to try to get Twitter castable, so that way you can put it on your TV. So Tucker Carlson, he's in a contract with Fox News. What they did, they fired him from the show, from doing his show. They weren't going to continue to pay him because he was still under contract January 2025. So get this, the legal team has now sent Fox a demand letter, and they say that they breached contract and that they are frauds. So in the letter sent to Fox officials from the attorneys, Brian Friedman and Harmeet Dillon, this was obtained by Axios, and I'm reporting here. It specifically claims that these Fox employees, Viet Din and Irina Briganti, I think I'm saying that right, and even Rupert Murdoch himself broke promises to Carlson intentionally and with reckless disregard for the truth, and that Carlson was told by a Fox board member that Carlson was taken off the air as part of the Dominion lawsuit, or like the settlement. So, of course, people are denying that now. We've got people as Fox spokesperson saying that that allegation is completely false. And then we have Dominion saying that they did not insist that Fox News fire Tucker Carlson. So people are saying that that's not true. But Carlson says that somebody on the Fox board told him that that was why they took him off of the air, was because it was part of the Dominion settlement, part of the negotiations there. And what's really interesting about this letter, too, is that Carlson's attorneys have also made it clear that they believe that Fox's Briganti, who is a Fox official, is behind a number of the leaks to the media intended to harm Carlson. I think Carlson has so much on these people, and I think that there is a defamation suit here, because think about it. He was in the height of his career. They took him off air, and from now until 2025, he could have been building that audience, and he was in a contract. So, yeah, I think he's got defamation. I think that he could sue for damages. I hope he does. But this letter was very aggressive, and they said that, make no mistake, we intend to subpoena Miss Briganti's cell phone records and related documents which evidence communications with her and all media, including and not limited to New York Times. So there was a story leaked to the New York Times about the text message of Tucker Carlson. But then it goes on, and they talk about how they are going to be in potential litigation over these issues. The letter also included a preservation notice. So what does that mean? That means that they have to take immediate steps to preserve all existing documents and data relevant to Carlson's relationship with the organization, including communications between executives and several media outlets. So he's going after him. And I can't wait, because I think it's going to be great. And legacy media is just dead. People don't care. People don't care about the talking heads on TV anymore. Y'all are out of a job, because Twitter is the new thing. Podcasting, it's the new thing, right? And I think Tucker Carlson understands that too, and he's going to make the best of it, and he's not going anywhere. Neither am I. I'll be back on the other side of this break. This is The Morning Buzz. We'll be back here in just a little bit. We're going to be talking about Chicago, because they are in a state of emergency right now because of all of the immigrants being sent there by Governor Greg Abbott. And the mayor, Lori Lightfoot, for the time being, she's out in just a few days, actually. I think May 15th is her last day. She's coming out and she's saying that, this is inhumane. Blah, blah, blah. How could Greg Abbott do this? Don't raise your hand. Don't raise your hand and say, I'm a sanctuary city. I'll take them. We're an immigrant-friendly city. And then when we actually send you immigrants, then you get all up in arms about it. So this is what I'm going to be talking about here next. Also, what I've got for you. Did you guys see this? This is crazy. It's a bloody brawl that happened at the Kentucky Derby. Even the girls in the fancy hats got involved. With all the money it takes to buy tickets and get yourself all dolled up for the Kentucky Derby, you would think that attendees would be more classy and dignified. But when the race itself is under 2 minutes, it leaves a lot of time, and the people got a little rowdy there. So words get said, being that the race is only like 2 minutes long. So someone scuffs your penny loafers. Next thing you know, some dude in a seersucker is going to be dropping bombs. So there's a video out there, and yeah, I mean it's crazy. Hang on, I'll share it with you. Here it is. You can't hear it. We'll play it here, but here we go. Guy in the green starts losing it. Look how bloody it gets. It's just so funny to see these fancy people get into fights like this. This guy's got a drink in his hand. I think you guys can see it. Can you see it? Oh, here we go. That's so funny. Here, I'll rewind. So here's the blood. There it is. Oh my goodness. Fancy hat woman comes in. Oh, this is so funny. Okay, so you get the gist, right? That was at the Kentucky Derby, and it was just a bloodbath. um, no one knows what caused this guy to wild out. The guy in the green, he was kind of the one that appears to have started it. I have a couple of theories. One is that someone in the crowd spoke ill of this little Mitch McConnell, Southern, prepper, and this guy wouldn't stand for it, and yeah, I mean, this is just the types of people, when they say Republicans aren't the problem, but they're not the solution. These are the type of Republicans that are are what I'm talking about when they aren't the solution. So yeah, it got wild at the Kentucky Derby. We'll be back here in just a little bit. Whoa! We've got some breaking news here. I'm excited to share it with you. The House Oversight Committee. They are saying that the Biden family and their associates and their companies received $10 million from foreign nationals and their companies. Let's take a listen, shall we?
The bank records show the Biden family, their associates, and their companies received over $10 million from foreign nationals and their companies. Some of that money came from a Chinese company and went to Hunter Biden's company. Other transfers occurred with the help of Rob Walker, who then sent it on to different Biden family members. This is not how lawful businesses operate. Chinese nationals affiliated with the Bidens created limited liability companies in the United States, and then in a short period of time transferred their interest to a Chinese company that sent money to the Bidens.
So, can we start talking about Joe Biden and the Biden family? And this is my problem. I've been talking about Donald Trump and this whole defamation thing, and it just doesn't make sense to me. The jury found that he was not liable for this rape accusation in this civil court case, And the jury said, look, that it didn't happen. In the eyes of the law, it didn't happen. And you're not guilty of it, Mr. Trump. But because you said it didn't happen, we're going to still hold you liable for the defamation. But defamation, the definition of defamation, you have to knowingly and maliciously lie about something. But clearly Donald Trump didn't lie because the jury came to the same conclusion that the rape didn't happen. This is just ridiculous. He's going to appeal it. And one thing that I wanted to bring up today was that, it didn't take too long for them to get indictments on a Republican president. And we're not talking a president that, was president years and years and years ago. We're talking about a president who just left office. In 4 months, the DOJ can throw an independent or an indictment together against a Republican. But for 6 years, we've got nothing on James Comey, Hunter Biden, Hillary Clinton, James Biden, Joe Biden, and countless others. Look, we are in a friend of the regime. If you are a friend of the regime, then you are untouchable. Hunter Biden is untouchable. And, the CIA actually did just fast track. We found out that the CIA fast tracked this letter to falsely suggest that the Hunter Biden laptop wasn't real and was actually Russian disinformation. So that's one thing that we've got. And when people say it's rigged, that's what we're talking about. It's rigged. The CIA fast-tracked a false letter. A false letter. Now, before we took the break, I was talking a lot about Tucker Carlson, and I want to get to Chicago and the immigrant influx that's happening there, because Texas Governor Greg Abbott has shipped these people to Chicago because Chicago is a sanctuary city. I don't think a lot of people know what sanctuary city means. So here it is. It's a city that's not going to not going to ask you questions about your immigration status. They don't disclose your status to authorities. They don't deport you. And most importantly, they don't deny you city services based on your immigration status. So Chicago is refusing to work with immigration agencies right now. And they say that, quote, partnering with ICE would go against our mission to make Chicago the most immigrant-friendly city in the country. And it would turn our community into a community of fear for immigrants. So we don't want to be a community of fear for these immigrants. We want to be welcoming. So, okay, you're raising your hand to be called on in class. I'm going to call on you. You're raising your hand. You're saying, bring them here. We're a sanctuary city. Unfortunately, your dreams are slamming straight into a cinder block of reality, lady, Lori Lightfoot, because she's now declared a state of emergency because she can't handle the influx of illegal immigrants, many of them sent by Texas Governor Greg Abbott. So in her statement, she says that just yesterday, they got near 50 individuals and families inhumanely bused to Chicago. I love that. Inhumanely. Texas Governor Greg Abbott put them on a bus and put them in a city that I thought was supposed to be friendly to immigrants. You're actually not. That's the thing, is they're not very friendly because according to some video now that we've got, I can see illegal immigrants sleeping on the floor without proper access to showers or bathrooms. So who's really inhumane here? Is it Greg Abbott who put them on a bus and brought them to you? Or is it you who is putting them on the floor and not giving them access to the bathroom? That to me, I think you're the inhumane one here, Lori Lightfoot. And I want to point out this hypocrisy, and this is important because you guys remember the way Chicago looked in 2020 during these George Floyd race riots, the race wars of 2020. You watched the city burn down. Chicagoans, they've been living in fear and in violent crime and death ever since. But yesterday, Lori Lightfoot, she declares the state of emergency over the illegal immigrant influx. Talk about not having your priorities straight. Where was the state of emergency when the city was burning down? What, now you're going to call for a state of emergency? look, you've got your hand up. We see your hand up. We're calling on you. That's the whole thing. And if you have a problem with it, then take it up with basement dweller former Vice President Joe Biden. Stop pretending that the border is not in a massive crisis and do something about it. Because Title 42 is going to expire and it's just going to get worse. 309-451-9299. We're going to be back on the other side, wrapping up the show here for your Wednesday morning. Going to be mostly sunny today. Going to read a few of your texts this morning. You can always text in. Illinois is a sanctuary state. Normal and Bloomington are welcoming cities. They have welcoming city proclamations. Chicago could decide to start shipping illegals here. Yes. Now, this is interesting. We have another text. Hey, Kat, it's coming to McLean County in due course. The woke Chicago influence began with the attempt to defeat Kathy Michael. Evidence, look at the last election. McLean County is almost a blue stronghold. Yes, so it is almost a blue stronghold. And I would say even down to the dog catcher, right? Everybody is a Democrat here in McLean County, and it is blue. So they are probably going to be shipping illegals here. We are probably going to see a spike in crime. Now, right now, I will say that here are a couple of positions that there are strongholds in. Erica Reynolds is a very good state's attorney. Sheriff Matt Lane is a very good McLean County sheriff. These are the two positions that are vital, and we've got good people in them right now. And I'm worried that they aren't going to have the backup, and they might leave, they might resign. We might see something similar to that, and then we will get a Democrat in those positions, or not even a Democrat, just somebody who is pro, because they're not really. I mean, they ran as Republicans, right? Or well, Matt Lane did, and she filled in Erica Reynolds for Don Knapp, who was a Republican. But yeah, I think that it's coming to McLean County. 309-451-9299. You can always text in to be a part of the show. I'm going to read a couple of texts here, some good ones. We've got one coming in. Illinois is a sanctuary state. Normal and Bloomington are welcoming cities. They have proclamations out there. That's correct. Chicago could decide to start shipping illegals here. Actually, fun little fact for you. I can't say for sure, but I definitely saw a bus, not super recently, about a couple months ago when this started to really amp up, with Governor Greg Abbott shipping the illegals to Chicago, to Lori Lightfoot. I saw a bus and it was in Normal here, and I can't say for sure if it was a bus that contained illegal immigrants, but I wouldn't be shocked, right, to see certain areas be flooded with this influx of illegal immigration, specifically Bloomington and Normal, because they are welcoming cities. Most likely what will happen is Lori Lightfoot or Brandon Johnson will start shipping them throughout the state, specifically to welcoming cities, people who have welcoming city proclamations, and both Bloomington and Normal do. Another one, hey, Kat, it's all coming to McLean County. In due course, the woke Chicago influence began with the attempt to defeat Kathy Michael. Evidence, just look at the this last election. McLean County is almost a blue stronghold. I would say that it is a blue stronghold almost. I mean, pretty much. We have a split county board right now. The only people, the line of defense we've got, I would say, is the McLean County Sheriff, who's good, and I don't know their political affiliations. I know Matt Lane ran as a Republican, but Matt Lane, good sheriff, and Erica Reynolds, great state's attorney. But when things start to pile on, typically good people go, and or they resign, or something like that, or they don't have the help, right? So Erica Reynolds has come out on record and has said that they can't find attorneys to staff the state's attorney's office. And, she did some speculating on, this, and said that could be because people aren't going to law school. It could be the criteria is too hard to go through law school. What I think it is any kind of prosecutor, any good prosecutor, sees the writing on the wall when it comes to the crime and doesn't want to be faced face to face here in the state of Illinois with dealing with something like the Safety Act, dealing with cash bond reform, quote, so-called reform. We're seeing this in Cook County, that state's attorney's office, and I could foresee it coming here to McLean County, where we start to see people resign if the state policies like the Safety Act are pushed by the governor. And yeah, I mean, it's all a trickle-down effect. If your governor is pushing for things at a statewide level, and the city has to go along with it, then it's coming to McLean County. So I appreciate the text message. Before we took the break, we were talking about Chicago and the illegal aliens that are flooding there. I mean, I think she said in the statement 8,000 since August of 2022. Yesterday, they got 50 from Greg Abbott. One thing that you need to know, there were 11 arrests in New York City the other day for this subway, the Jordan Neely thing. What was going on was there was a clash between protesters and the police during a demonstration. This is the subway sleep hold and eventually the death of Jordan Neely. We still don't know if the sleep hold was the cause of death, right? But there's people out there protesting, and 11 people were arrested. And there was a Molotov cocktail that was confiscated Monday night in Manhattan. That's important to note. 309-451-9299. I'm going to have my phone on me all day. You can continue to text me throughout the day. We'll be back at it tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. After me, it's Glenn Beck, Dan Bongino, Sean Hannity, Mark Levin, Mark Lee Van Camp, and Robbins. You guys have a great rest of your day.